At this point, I haven't sown anything in my trays yet. I'm just getting in the planning stages here, deciding what to put in. And I've got a lot of shelf space and everything's cleaned up in here. So I'm ready to get it all messed up again. How about that? More flower frogs. I want to show you these boots my husband brought me. He is so great. James is always bringing me home the best things for gardening, and he brought me these boots. I love them. I haven't even worn them yet because I don't want to get them messed up yet. I might just wear them for rain boots. And then another pair of blues here, and these are my red ones that I've just worn to bits, and they're not ready for retirement yet, so I'm going to keep on wearing them. And then he got me another pair over here, which are also absolutely delightful. So these are going to be fun to wear either in the rain or in the garden, but I'm sure they'll be covered in mud before you know it. Next year they won't look anything like this. I'm going to be sowing larkspur, bachelor buttons, poppies over the next few weeks in all these nice empty sections here that I've cleared out. But this little strip right here is full of daffodil bulbs, and this one is full of perennial tulips. So the tulips will be the first things to come up, and then we've got lupins that were planted last year and they didn't bloom at all, but hopefully they will next time. And seeds. This is where the oriental poppies were. The oriental poppies were a horrible disappointment to me. They grew to such gorgeous, gorgeous plants. Gorgeous plants. I was just waiting every day to see them open up and give me those beautiful colors. And they never did. They never got a blossom on them. They started to turn brown and die until they just died down to nothingness in the heat of summer. Now I'm hoping that the roots are still down in there and they're going to revive. In fact, one of them actually is right here. But I was so excited to show you the blooms on those oriental poppies that never happened. Now oriental poppies are perennial poppies, not the annual poppies that I've shown you in the past. But so far they've been nothing but a disappointment to me, because even though I was watching over them like a mother hen, all I've got growing in here now are the ever-present salvias, strawberries, and pink primrose. And I want you to meet our new kitty. This is my new adopted kitty, and her name, well, this was Nancy's kitty, and Nancy had to move to assisted living, so I took in her little girl, and she's only about a year old. She's beautiful, isn't she? And Titus kind of likes her. Now, Nancy named her Smokey, but I don't think that really fits, so I hope Nancy doesn't mind if I rename her Estella, because I really think that's a little more appropriate for her. So she's just getting used to the place right now. A lot of work going on in here. This is where the sweet peas grew so beautifully for me in one of the sections last year. And what I do for the peas to let them climb is I always put little sticks and twigs in the ground. And inevitably, my beautiful little twigs turn into beautiful little bushes. So I have little saplings here of Rose of Sharon all over the place. And that is purposeful, because I love Rose of Sharon. It's a beautiful flowering bush, very productive. And so at the end of the season, I just pull out those little saplings that grew out of the ground, and I end up with a lot of little Rose of Sharon bushes. And another one that I end up with a lot are crepe myrtle bushes. They're just little saplings everywhere. Then I dig them up and I transplant them all around the yard. This is really a strawberry and bulb bed here. I don't really have to do much in here because it's already full of strawberries. It's full of lots and lots and lots of bulbs, which will come up in the spring. But I just might sprinkle a little bit of larkspur and maybe some bachelor buttons in here. And now along the pathway, which needs to be swept, obviously, we're going to go onto the porch. Now these little foxgloves and hollyhocks have been growing in these trays for such a long time, months really, virtually months. That's how long it's taken them to get this far along because they're slow. And it's because they're biennials, so they don't really pop up quite readily. But I've been planting them in various places here in the potager garden, which has really become more of a cutting garden than anything else. And the ones that I put in earlier this year, you can see they're doing really, really well. Next year they'll bloom, and this whole corner will just be filled with beautiful foxgloves, and hopefully the hollyhocks will take as well. But hollyhocks and primroses and a lot of bulbs in this little section right here, leading up to the porch. Now, I've filmed sections of the porch before, but I've never really shown you the entire porch. So let's just walk up to the main section over here where I work, which you've seen before, of course. Flower arrangements. Just picked a couple of the sunflowers. You know, I planted so many different varieties of sunflowers, but I didn't think that there was that much difference between the looks of them. With the exception of the mammoth, which I'm going to show you the head of that one in a few minutes. That one was amazing. But I just save these for the seeds. Generally, I leave them on the plant so the finches can have them over the fall. Show you here are my paper lanterns. I purchased these paper lanterns over 30 years ago from the Victorian Trading Company. I've never used them. I've never used them. They've been folded up and put in a plastic bag for years. And then finally I thought, what better place to put these than where you're going to be making bouquets? Now the green wicker on the porch, this is antique wicker, and it is real wicker, but it is prone to problems, such as cracking and breaking. Change the look on the porch to give it a more seasonal look. I just changed the cushions. In this case, I'm still in the spring and summer mode, as you can see, because actually it just still feels like summer out here to me. Everything is still so green and lush and beautiful. Not a lot of flowers blooming at the time in my garden, but it's still very, very summery, although the temperatures have dropped quite a bit and it's getting very comfortable. But for example, on this couch here, I have just used old quilt pieces from bedding that we had that just was worn out, and I just make slip covers and pillowcases and that sort of thing, and then I switch them out as the seasons go by. So this couch is acting as a wall between the potting porch and the front porch, and that's to keep the dogs off of that side of the porch and in this garden. And there's actually a little gate that goes right here that I can close whenever I want. I'm trying to keep the dogs out of my garden. They're very destructive in many, many ways. One thing I also like about these cushions is they really match my paper lanterns. A house of this style, this house was built between 1890 and 1912. This is called a four-square house, and it was very typical for a house like this to have either a large front porch or a wraparound porch. The wraparound porch would go around either both sides and the front, or just one side and the front. And in our case, we have one that goes around the front of the house and all along one side, and that's really a large living area. It's amazing how much space you have with a porch like this. It's like other living quarters. Several other rooms could actually be made from a porch of this size. This table looks out on several gardens, and this little garden room, and the front garden, and the chickens, and my pond that needs to be repaired. And there's often a peacock trying to make his way. This dining set with 4 chairs, it's wicker. It's indoor-outdoor wicker. So that's convenient because it doesn't go bad like real wicker. I love real wicker, but it does not withstand the weather. So this is a really great table with 4 chairs, and this stuff really holds up. Because we do a lot of dining out here, we have a cabinet right here that is filled with all the implements for setting the table, such as this cupboard holds a lot of napkins, tablecloths, paper plates, cups, china, dinnerware, all sorts of things that we need to use out here on the porch. I changed the top of this cabinet according to the seasons. Feels like it's still summer here, so I'm really not quite ready to do anything for fall. Here on the far side of the porch is James' side, and this is these 2 cupboards right here. He just acquired and painted them. Pretty large one, and it holds a lot of small tools and hand items and just bottles of oil and the sort of thing that you just don't want showing on the porch. Anyway, he painted it. It was a very nondescript wood, not very attractive at all. He painted it. This is an old one, probably 1915, something like that. And I'm about to put a transfer on the bottom of it. Now the one next to it is another one that shorter, also old, probably from the 1930s or 40s, not that attractive. That one, I'm not sure what I'm going to do to that one yet. But it's made of metal, actually. It's made of metal, so it's kind of funky. But I'm going to do a little work on this one, on this side of the porch, and see what I can come up with. I think it's going to turn out very nicely. The transfer that I'm using on this cupboard is called All the Flowers. It's also made by Redesign, just like my other ones. And I bought 2 of these, so I'm going to put both of them to use on that very large cupboard. Okay, I did not bother to film the process of putting on these transfers on this cupboard because I did it in the last video on the red cupboard, which I finished, and that will follow this clip so you can see what the finished red cupboard looks like. This one took me quite a long time because I had a little bit of problem with some of the paint surfaces. The transfers were peeling the paint off instead of sticking to it, and that's because in a certain section right down here on this panel, for some reason, the paint was really thin and it didn't have a primer under it. and it was causing the transfer to pull away from the paint. So be careful when you do a transfer. Make sure that you have a really stable paint surface. Anyway, this one turned out really beautiful. I love it. Just look at these gorgeous images, antique images of roses and plants and bees and butterflies. So let's go on to the next video. And in the last video, we left off with my having used the entire transfer and only gotten halfway down the door. So I had to order another identical transfer, but I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't want to cover the entire door because the design is just too busy. So I had to get a little creative here. I went all the way down with the second transfer that I ordered, and I used the top half right down here way on the bottom of the cupboard. But now I'm going to take the bottom half and I'm going to get a little bit creative with it, and I'm going to be cutting it apart and using just bits and pieces of it to finish off this cupboard. Now I'm not going to be putting any transfers on the sides. This is only going to be done on the front, but I feel like I need something right around here in the corners. So I'm going to get my scissors out and do a little bit of cutting on this transfer. I ended up cutting one of these sections into about 8 different pieces. I have dismantled quite a bit the pattern so that it would fit on this cupboard in different ways and with a different design. I've added to certain areas like this. I've cut the birds apart to put them in the corners. You just have to use your imagination and your design skills and see what you can come up with if the transfers don't fit your furniture perfectly. So I am covering these transparencies with Minwax Polycrylic Crystal Clear Top Coat Clear Satin. And it's very milky when you put it on. Looks very milky, but it dries beautifully satin. You cannot even see it on there anymore. And those transfers just blend right into the wood as if they were hand painted. In fact, before I ever started to do this, my husband said, "Why don't you just hand paint that cupboard?" And I thought, "You're crazy. It could be hand painted." And in fact, I know somebody that painted beautiful furniture by hand. But that would have taken me a month. This took me a matter of days. And it's absolutely beautiful. Finish this cupboard using the stencils. I ended up buying 2 packages, same stencil. In the case of 3 pieces, I did it as it was intended. And with the 4th piece, I cut it apart and used it in various ways, such as cutting apart these birds and a lot of the things to go down the center. But I still maintained a mirror image throughout the entire cabinet. So I'm pretty pleased with it. Everything in this room looks like bright colors, but it's not. This looks like mustard yellow on my wall, but it's really a pale, like a pale lemon yellow. So I don't know what's going on with this camera. And this is more of a dull red, so excuse the colors, but that's just the way my camera's picking it up.